Hello, I'm going to talk about why I used to be a Republican, sort of. I wasn't really, but I leaned that way, or leaned right, and why I stopped. Okay? Okay, before I even got into politics, because I didn't care at all about them. Okay, like, I was dating this guy whose mom was neither, but there was a lot of fear-mongering, and basically I was fear-mongered into being right-wing, right? Because it's like, gay people are taking over the world. And all this. And I do believe being gay is a sin, but I don't hate anybody, and I saw how people acted about it. It's like, you can't even say that, and then people get mad. They were right about that. Like, people get mad if you even say that, but you don't want to hurt anybody, and you don't think that you have a right to tell them not to be. It's their decision. It's like, you're just, if you're gonna ask me what I think, I'm gonna tell you. But that doesn't mean I don't love them and stuff, because I do. I have friends that are gay. And, I watch Pretty Little Liars and all this. But anyway, I saw that, which I do think that was true, that a lot of people did get, that they would get asked what they felt about it. And they would tell them the truth of what they thought, and, they would get attacked for it. But it's like, that's wrong. Okay, but then, all the other stuff. I was like, well, that's pretty much the only thing I didn't really care about, or it's not that I didn't care, but, and then I thought, and people were like, well, see, we don't want people to be on welfare assistance because we want them to be independent from the government. Because if the government pays you, the government controls you. And that's the only thing I cared about. I'm like, I just don't want people to be dependent on the government, because I want them to be free from the government. I just don't want the government to be able to control people that way. That's what I thought. I thought we were all on the same page here, and that's the only reason I didn't like it. I wasn't like, I don't think these people should have money. I don't think these people should have my tax dollars. I didn't think that way. I didn't care. I'm like, I like the tax system. I like the idea. And actually reading the Bible changed my mind about that, because I was like, hey, wait a minute. Like, the first instance of a sort of welfare thing is when, I can't remember if it's Deuteronomy, I think it is, where it says you'll work for 6 years on your harvest, the farms, basically. Work for 6 years and harvest what you've sown. And then the 7th year, leave it alone, store up what you need for the 7th year. And then the 7th year, all the poor people come and gather the harvest from the people that worked for it. It's like, and nowadays I'd be like, hey, wait a minute, they didn't work for this. It's like, well, the Bible says to do that. Okay, the Bible told them to do that. And in the 7th year, all the people that were poor and didn't have their own would go in the 7th year and take the harvest from the people that worked on the farms for 6 years. That's in there. Go look it up. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is basically what welfare is, I mean, honestly, it's the beginning of it. That's the first instance of it, probably. And I'm like, whoa, and I always liked the idea. I'm like, well, if people are poor, couldn't we take just a little bit, instead of giving to charities and not instead of, but charity's the same thing. It's like, if we took a little bit, just a tiny bit from each person and shared it with the people that didn't have anything, that's a good idea. In my mind, I'm like, just the basics of it, it's a good idea. The premise of it is a great idea. I just didn't want, the only thing I didn't like about it was who you depend on can control you. That's the only thing I didn't like about it. Because I don't like that. But, then I started seeing people actually say, this is my money, and start, actually taking food out of, it's a selfishness. That was never my reasoning for it. That was never my reasoning for not liking it. I wanted to help the people more by, Ted Nugent even said one time, which I was like, it's like, they want, the government wants people to depend on them because then they can control them. And I'm like, and he was like, we're trying to liberate them from that. And I'm like, You know, that's kind of how I felt about it. But I never felt like I don't want them to have stuff because they didn't work for it. Because I'm like, I don't know their situation. You know, it wasn't about me being greedy and selfish about my money and my tax dollars. Because I know that, like, if we get rid of welfare completely, guess what? My tax dollars are still going to be taken away from me and given to the government. You know? It's like, you know, I don't have kids, but my tax dollars go to schools. And I could be like, well, I don't have kids, you know, and I've said this before, people probably think I was serious, but I meant, like, this is how you sound. I don't feel this way, but, like, I don't have kids. I'm never going to have kids. Why should my tax dollars go to the public school system? You know, like, that's how you're acting, but the reason I don't mind, and the reason I'm, like, totally fine with it, is because, you know, when I go to the doctor, I want them to be educated. You know, when I have a nurse that, you know, when I'm in the nursing home, I want the nurses taking care of me to have been well educated. It doesn't matter if I have kids that go to public school. I want the most educated people, you know, fixing my food or fixing my cars or fixing my, you know, body, you know, anything that I need. Like, anybody that I'm going to hire or somebody that's going to work for me in any way or somebody that I'm going to buy off of, why would I want them to be not educated, you know? Like, I don't want my doctors to not be educated well. So why would I not care? You know, why would I not want my tax dollars to go to something that, you know, in the long run does benefit me and everyone else? That's the whole point of taxes, you know, is to benefit everyone. And even if it doesn't benefit me personally, like, you know, it might benefit someone else. And then that's their benefit's going to go to somewhere else. And it's going to eventually come back to me. You know? You know what I'm saying? And just like people on welfare and people on food stamps, they don't buy things from the black market with this stuff. I mean, they might some, but, like, their money goes towards the economy. If they can't spend money, the economy loses money. It's just, it all goes back in, you know? So it's like, we're circulating here. You know, this is how society works. But, you know, if I have a shop, you know, where I'm selling food, and I don't take food stamps there, because I'm like, oh, I don't like food stamps, my tax dollars, blah, blah, blah. If I was like that, then people that were on food stamps wouldn't buy my food. I'm not losing money if they buy it with food stamps. I would get the same amount I would get if they bought it with cash or credit card or whatever. You know, I would want them to be able to shop there with food stamps because, you know, it's going to hurt me if I don't let them. You know what I'm saying? Okay, now that we've explained it. Okay, and then I watched Stranger Things. Well, first of all, Trump started running. I'm like, I can't support this dude. I cannot. Especially, you know, after I thought he was a joke. I'm like, there's no way. He's a joke. I can't believe people even are taking him seriously. And I couldn't support him. I'm like, well, I like Ben Carson, kind of. And I'm like, and I like Bernie Sanders, too. Because I took a quiz online that was like, which person matches all your issues, which politician running, you know, matches your stuff the most. First person, top of the list, Bernie Sanders. I'm like, okay, cool. Because it was about, you know, because I do believe in healthcare for everyone. And I do believe in legalizing marijuana. And I do believe in cheaper colleges. You know, like colleges, that's a big issue. Okay, student loans is a big issue. Which Trump and Betsy DeVos are, like, freaking, like, messing up so bad. But, anyway, but the whole, you know, student loan forgiveness, you know, the college issues about we need to lower the price of going to college. Because I want the smartest people. Like, that's the thing. Why would you not want college to be free for students? Because, okay, then if college was free for students, the people that want to be doctors for the right reasons will become doctors. Okay? Not just the people that can afford to go to medical school. Okay? If somebody's just going to medical school because they're already rich or they can afford it, like, what are their reasonings for wanting to be a doctor? To make more money? Or to do this or that? Like, I don't want that to be their reasoning. You know, only the people that can afford it can get in. So it's like, that's not fair. And also it hurts me because it's like, I want the people to become doctors that become doctors because they want to help people. And those people don't always have the money to go to medical school. Or lawyers, or whoever. Like, you know what I mean? If people do a better job at their job if they're doing what they want to do because they love it, okay? That would make a better economy. That would make better workers all over the place. You know what I'm saying? That would make everything better if college was free, or at least very cheap, like it is it's free in Germany. College is free in Germany, okay? You can go there. I could go there right now and go to college for free. I can be an immigrant and go to college for free in Germany. It doesn't matter, you know, it's free. So it's like, if they can pull it off, you know, they're like, well, our expenses. Oh my gosh, really? Like, at least lower the freaking prices, because that's ridiculous. And maybe even just only charge for housing. If you want to live there, you pay rent. If you want to live on the college, you can pay rent. Or something, you know? It's like, not pay for actual tuition, but maybe just pay for rent. Or pay like $20 for a book. Books, it costs as much. Okay, for 1 year of college in the UK, it's $500. That's about the price of a book here for college. Is that not insane? You can maybe get 2 books for college classes for $500 here. And a whole year of college, everything, including books, everything for a whole year of college is $500. Now, there's something wrong. If they can pull it off, why can't we? And these buildings are already there. It's like, you could charge for food, you know, like have a cafeteria and charge for food. That could pay for expenses, like if they even have any. It's like, people could buy their books, but they should not be $100 a piece or $200 a piece. You know, they could be like $20. Like, at least give people a fair chance, you know, and then they don't have it. And it's ridiculous. Yeah, they're student loans, but then people can't pay them off. Like, they're in debt for the rest of their life. They can't get the job to pay off the loans, you know? It's pretty bad. I mean, you're better off not even going to college at this point because it's so freaking expensive and you gotta pay student loans. That's why I wouldn't take student loans. I went to college. I got grants, which that's a good thing to have, but you gotta, like, jump through so many hoops, you know, to get a grant. And they didn't offer any of the classes I wanted. They didn't offer anything I really wanted. I went for accounting, but that's only because my 2 options were accounting or nursing, and I definitely don't want to be nursing. So, anyway, the point is, I'm like, I agreed with the most stuff with Bernie Sanders, and I didn't even know that. I'm like, well, I don't even know much about him, but at the time. And I was like, well, you know, and he was a Democrat, basically. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, I never really cared that much which party I was. I was like, I'm not really, on my voter's registration, it doesn't say what I'm registered as. I'm independent, because I'm like, which, I don't know if that's a political party. I just wanted independent because I'm like, I don't have a political party. Those words mean nothing to me, really. So I don't care. I care about each individual issue individually, you know. And I don't even care, like, politically about the issues. I just care about what they mean. You know what I mean? Like, if you're racist, that's wrong. I don't care which political party that falls under. I don't care who says what. I don't care. It's wrong, regardless. Like, I just care about actual moral right and wrong in reality and the Bible, you know. So, and I'm like, okay. Anyway, but then I'm like, okay, you know, I don't agree with gay marriage, you know, because, you know, I just don't. I think that it's a sin, and I'm like, the only reason I need to get married ever is if I want to have sex with somebody, you know, honestly, because it's like, I'm not having sex until marriage, so the only reason I would need to get married to somebody is so we can do that legally, basically, to not be, you know. So, I mean, I'm not saying I would get married for that reason to anybody, but, like, if I fall in love with somebody and I want to be with them for the rest of my life, the only reason I would need to get married to them is so that we could have sex without sinning. That's just the thing, you know. It's like, so I'm thinking, like, you're already, so in my head, I can't process why you would, you know, which I'm not saying they it's not for me to say that, like, I can force other people to live a certain way. I don't think that you should force anything on anybody, because then it's not even real. If you force somebody to stop sinning legally or governmentally, their heart's not in it, so it means nothing, really. God can change their hearts. That's what I'm interested in, changing people's hearts, not like, I don't care what they think really, or where their heart is. I just want them to follow my rules and obey. Like, that's not real Christianity. Like, if you force somebody to live in obedience to God, like, if you have to force them and their heart's not in it, they're not a real Christian. If you force somebody to become a Christian by force, they're not a real Christian, so there's no point in doing that. Let them sin, because they might as well be, because, they're just as much a sinner as they always were, even if you make them obey the rules, So, I would rather people have their hearts changed, actually, and become a real Christian, because they want to. Because that's the only way that it's real. So, I'm not going to be, like, out here holding signs, like, saying that God hates gay people, because that's not true at all. And, attacking people for how they live. And it's weird, because it's the only things that people do that about on the right wing is being gay or abortion. I'm like, okay, I can maybe get the abortion thing because innocent people that can't talk for themselves get murdered. And I agree that it's murder, but I'm like, the way to help them is not to yell at them. You're just pushing them away. That's not the right way. I know that. Like, I just know that. It's not the right way to do it. But, and the whole, where in their mind are they right now? Like, in what state of mind are they in right now? Are they just, like, whistling and skipping along and being happy about the whole situation? No, they're, like, freaking miserable. Like, they're scared, and it's not like, their motivation is not, like, oh, I don't care about anybody but myself, It's like, I don't know what to do here, because I don't have any options, and it's like, this was an accident, to even be this way in the first place. So it's like, I didn't want to have a kid, so it's like, how do you, but yelling at them is not helping them, and it's not helping anybody, and it's only going to push them away from you. It's really that's really, but, and then there's, I don't understand yelling at gay people about being gay, because it's like, you think they're going to change their mind about how they live because of, you're just making them not like you. Honestly. And it's like, that's not the way to do that. If you want to change them, if you want them to, like, repent, yelling at them and being mean to them is, like, the opposite of the right thing to do. And it's like, I'm not gonna lie about it being a sin, but I definitely don't approve of bullying people, and for any reason. But it's like only those two things, and being gay doesn't hurt anybody but the person that's gay, Like, it's like, yeah, it might be a sin, but they're not actually forcing anything on anyone else, unless they rape somebody, but it's not, they don't, it's like, that's not a thing that they do more than anyone else. The people that rape people the most are men. 98% of rapists are men. Which some, so that means a lot of lesbians don't rape people. Because, if 98% of rapists are men. But, it's not a specific to gay people to do that. So it's like, just, the demographic that rapes the most people is men, and usually they're white, and it's because they have entitlement issues. But anyway, the patriarchy and all that, and they get away with it, because if you're black and you rape somebody, you are going to get in a lot of trouble. But if you're white and you rape somebody, you're not going to get in as much trouble, and that's the truth. Which, it doesn't matter, if you're gay or black or whatever. If you rape somebody, you should be in trouble. It doesn't matter, like it doesn't matter what you are. If you actually commit a crime, you should be in trouble, especially rape. So I don't have any sympathy for rapists. I don't care what color they are or if they're gay or not. Like, you're a rapist, you're a rapist. There's no excuse for it. Just calling out, what's his name, that actor that was like, oh, I was only a child molester because I was embarrassed to come out of the closet. I'm like, don't even. Like, that's so stupid. Like, that's not the reason. That's a dumb thing to say. Like, I mean, that has nothing to do with it. It's stupid. And it's like, you're just using that and it's not even, I don't even believe that, but it's like, Kevin Spacey is who it was. Like, shut up, Kevin Spacey. That's not why you child molested somebody. Like, you're a child molester. Like, it doesn't matter, if you're gay or not. You're not going to look at a child and be like, I'm attracted to a child, but I'm not a child molester. Like, no, it doesn't matter. You're disgusting. That's not an excuse. Don't even go there. It's like, that's definitely not an excuse. But anyway, then, seeing Donald Trump making fun of a guy that was handicapped and, being mean about everyone, being mean and being stupid and not knowing what he was talking about anything and everything he said, and also that story came out about him saying he sexually assaulted women and that was bad enough, but what made it worse was the people's reaction trying to defend him. And I'm like, I spent all this time thinking these people, that said, I will not compromise God's word for the world or for what's acceptable, And I'm like, okay, cool, when they were talking about being gay, being a sin, and I'm like, I agree, I'm not going to compromise, God's word for any reason. And here they are, being like, well, rape is not that bad. Let's forgive him. Let's forget about it. I'm like, wait. You spent all this time acting like you would never compromise God's word. You would never, be accepting or condone sin. But here you are, being cool with a rapist. Being cool with somebody that sexually assaults women. How do you not see that as hypocrisy? And then it's suddenly, everybody makes mistakes. It's like, I'm sorry, like, and saying, like, well, Trump says he's a Christian, so I believe him. I'm like, Obama said he was a Christian for 8 years, and nobody believed him. Why? Because, and they say, well, he didn't act like one. It's like, no, Trump doesn't act like one. He doesn't to this day. He still doesn't. Like, nothing he does makes me think his fruits, you'll know them by their fruits, Jesus said, and I don't, I'm not going to say whether Obama's a Christian or whether Trump, I can't say whether they are or not, either one of them, but the same standards that you held such a high standard for Obama, who didn't go around sexually assaulting people, who didn't, act racist and do all this stuff, you're holding him to a much higher standard. It's like, well, he's got to be perfect in every way and agree with me on everything. Or I'm going to say he's not a real Christian because he doesn't like guns, or whatever. And it's like, which I'm like, where exactly in the Bible does it say that you should like guns? It doesn't say that, actually, and it doesn't say anything. Jesus actually told Peter that if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So that doesn't sound like he's very into weapons or living life, obsessed with weapons, to me. And yeah, honestly, and I don't think he likes them very much. I think he would prefer people not use weapons, if at all possible, to never ever have to use one. It would be the preferred thing. And I'm not saying like it's a sin to own a gun. I'm just saying, like, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. If your life is absorbed with being obsessed with guns, I don't think that's very good. And I see these stickers that's like, God, country, and guns, and I'm like, one of these things is not like the others. You're acting like those three things are equally important, and they're not. When it comes to that, God is way above. God is not even associated with guns. Like, there's nothing about them that is godly. They're a human-made tool. you know, and there's nothing godly about them, you know. I'm not saying they're sinful in and of themselves, but they're not godly in any way. And country, it's like, you know, if any country was chosen by God, it was Israel, but that's the Old Testament stuff, and it's like, you know, I can be just as Christian in Australia or Russia or, you know, wherever I live. And it has nothing to do with it. You don't have to be patriotic to be a good Christian at all. You don't have to be patriotic at all. It's not a requirement from God to be patriotic, because it's like, if you understand that all the earth was made by God and all people that live on the earth was made by God and they're all equal, regardless what country they live in, regardless if they live in the Middle East, especially, like, I'm like, all these people acting like everybody from the Middle East is a freaking terrorist, and where do they think Jesus lived when he was on the earth? You know, he lived in Israel. What do you think he looked like? He wasn't white. He wasn't Anglo-Saxon white. He wasn't European. He was Middle Eastern looking, because he lived in the Middle East, in Israel. Hello. But anyway, you know, but I saw these people holding Obama to a much higher standard. You know, it's like, well, I don't believe that Obama was a Christian because he, you know, did this and that. And it's like, you know, at the time that it was happening, I'm like, I don't know, man. But then the same exact people are like, we need to forgive Trump. Christians aren't all perfect, blah, blah, blah. You have to forgive him. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm not forgiving him. I'm saying, and I'm not judging him. It's like, don't judge everybody for what they do. And I'm like, wait a minute. You know, it's like, that's not judging. Not wanting someone to be the ruler of the United States of America, to not, wanting someone to not be the president of the United States of America is not judging them. We're allowed to, you know, pick people because of what they do for certain things. Like, you can't just be like, you have to hire anybody at this job because you can't judge them. There's certain instances where you have to judge people based on their behavior. Like when you're hiring somebody, when you're figuring out who you want to date or marry, when you're appointing somebody the head of something. You do, like, that is, you know, you have to, even when they picked a new apostle, remember? When they had to pick a 12th apostle because Judas was gone? And the apostle had to have requirements to be an apostle? And nobody was like, you're judging him. It's like, no, like, no, that's not the same. It's not judging someone that way. It's not being judgmental to want people to have the right qualifications for a job. You know? And it's like, and I don't understand. I don't understand why people act like, you know, oh, you can't be, you know, if you're a Christian, you have to support all police no matter what. I'm like, where in the Bible does it even say that? Where does it say anything like that, even close to that? You know, the closest thing to the police in that time was like the Roman soldiers. And, you know, there was no special importance put on them. They weren't, you know, people weren't bowing down to them. You know, Christians were not required to bow down to the government or the Roman soldiers. You know, they were just there. You know, they weren't held especially to a high, you know, place of admiration like the police are now for some reason. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, why do you think this is a thing that we should do? And it's like this, and the whole thing is wrapped up in this whole Americanization. People are trying to, like, Americanize Christianity, and it's what killed the Native Americans. It really freaking bothers me, because it's like, they're like, well, they were missionaries, come to America to do missionary work and get them to be Christians. I'm like, that would have been cool and all, but we have missionaries still to this day that go to countries and spread the gospel. They don't rape and murder people. They don't take their country from them. They don't steal the land and act like this has always been our country. We're white and we're awesome. Like, no, that's not what missionaries do. Some of the people might have been missionaries, but missionaries don't go there to take over the land. They go there to spread the gospel and then go back home. You know, what they should have done is be missionaries and go there, tell the Native Americans the gospel, and then go back to Europe and stay there and not steal the country. Though it was not necessary for them to kidnap and rape and murder Native Americans to make them Christians. That's not how you do that. That's not how that works. That turns them, even I know for a fact, that turns some of them against becoming one because they didn't know what it was. And it's like, this is the only example you're showing them of Christianity, is that you're gonna freaking murder them and rape them and kidnap their children and force them into marriage, force them into schools to try to make them like you. And it's like, why would the Native Americans need to change their lifestyle? You know, why couldn't they live the way they lived and also be Christians? There was nothing inherently Christian about the European way of life. They didn't have to wear petticoats and, you know, drink tea to be Christians. You know, there was nothing, that's nothing to do with it. Their lifestyle that stemmed from their country and traditions and culture had nothing to do with it. The Native Americans could have been Christians and kept their culture and their traditions, because the traditions are meaningless and on both sides. So it's like, why would they have to be like the Europeans and live like the Europeans and live in houses and dress like them to be Christians? They didn't. You could have just let them be real Christians and live however they wanted to. Like, that's when the Americanization, and that's when, I mean, they thought their way was the right way, and it still lasts to this day. That's still what people do. It's like, why can't white people get the freak over themselves and stop acting like everything they do is the right way? Because it's not. You know, we're like, oh, but it's tradition to celebrate Easter. And it's like, it should be called Resurrection Day. Easter, I don't want to call it that, because that's not real. That's a thing that people, they mix with the pagan things. I mean, you can read about it online. So I don't want to call it Easter. I'll celebrate Jesus' resurrection. I'll call it Resurrection Day. I'm not celebrating Easter, you know, the word Easter, because it's not right. And we've become accustomed to this. And it's like, oh, it's whatever. It's like, you're telling us not to be like the world because we can't listen to 21 Pilots or watch Pretty Little Liars or be like, act like I'm awful for being a feminist, but you can, like, spend centuries and decades acting like your way is the right way when you're the ones that intertwined, you know, our faith with pagan traditions. It's like, excuse me, wait a minute, no. Like, I'll call it Resurrection Day, and I'm gonna be a feminist, because I'm gonna go by what God's word says, not what white men who rule this stupid country told me is the right way to be a Christian. Your way of doing things is not the right way every time. You know, the Americanization of it, and you have to be patriotic, and you have to like football, and American is apple pie. It's like, none of that stuff has anything to do with my faith. I could live in a cabin. John the Baptist sat in the freaking woods and ate locusts and wear camel fur. If I want to do that, I will. And you can say whatever you want about whatever I do or whatever I enjoy, but you're wrong. You know, I can be a liberal, feminist, Christian. You know, I can like Native American stuff and like my Native American heritage and still be a Christian. And I can support people that are victims of rape and assault. And I think that's definitely important to God. God hates rape. Obviously. It's even in the Bible. And people don't want to talk about it. And I have to be, you know, you have to wear 1950s American sundresses that Donna Reed wore on the Donna freaking Reed show to be a good Christian lady. And that's not true. Nothing about American traditions is Christianity. Like, you're intertwining things that don't match. Stop putting up stickers that say, you know, I support God and our country and guns. You know, stop mixing God with your Americanized traditions. Like, it you know, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm not saying that, like, loving your country or guns, well, the love of guns is probably bad. It's probably a mental disorder of some sort to love a weapon that much. There's probably something wrong with you. Like, you probably have an insecurity issue if you, like, actually love guns. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, actually. I mean, that's the truth. Like, it's compensation for something. You're trying to feel powerful. And you probably have some sort of emotional issue that you need to go to a psychiatrist and talk about. Honestly. But, like, God doesn't love guns. They're just items. That man-made items. They're no different than me loving fake fingernails or, it's like there's nothing inherently Christian about guns. There's nothing inherently Christian about America. And it's very messed up if you think about the real history of how this place got started. And it's like, you think that was the right way? And they're like, well, it just makes me so mad if you can't even talk to a white supremacist, like, honestly, because they're so dumb about everything. They're so ignorant, and they don't even, it doesn't even matter what you say. It's like talking to a wall. But, they think that, which, I know that God's in control of everything, and what, eventually turned out to happen, but, like, God did never approve of them raping Native Americans and kidnapping them and taking them from their homes and forcing them to live like Europeans. There was nothing. And then you turn around and act like these people are foreign, like Native Americans have even been told to go back to their own country because people actually believe that, like, this country belongs to white people. And I'm like, seriously, that's messed up. That's so ignorant and backwards. Like, if you're white, somewhere along the line, you're an immigrant. And I just said, and only white, really, because some of the indigenous people were darker skinned. So, it's possible that you could be black and, have mostly native ancestry because of the indigenous people, like, that were in Cuba and stuff, were, but anyway, that's a whole, just, like, geological issue, discussion, whatever. But, anyway, and the black people here that are descended from slaves were not immigrants. They didn't want to come here. And you're telling them to leave. It's like, why did you bring them here if you weren't going to treat them right? It's like, your fault, So, yeah, and racism is bad. It doesn't matter who it's for or against or whatever, it's bad. And, you can't sit around and act like, that, and act like I'm wrong for being against racism, and I'm wrong for being against sexism and rape. Because it's the liberal thing, it's what liberals are against. It's like, I don't give a crap who's for or against what. I care about what's right and wrong, actually. And if you don't like it, that's too bad. I mean, that's too bad for you, because I'm not gonna stop, and I'm not gonna sit here and act like, what makes me the most mad, though, is it really aggravates me that people are acting like, attacking my faith. They say it happens to them all the time. No, what happens is you are trying to act like you want me to be exactly like you. Otherwise, I'm not being a good enough Christian because I'm not like you. I don't have to be like you. I'm required to be like Jesus. And, he loved everybody. He fed the poor. And he healed the sick. So that's what I want us to do. Like, I'm not sorry for actually following what Jesus taught. I'm not sorry. And I'm not sorry for listening to him about you shouldn't, live by the sword or you will die by the sword. I listen to that. I understand that. I agree with that. I'm sick of people acting like I have to be Republican in every way or I'm not a good Christian. Like, no, that's not true at all, and I don't believe you. I know you're wrong. You're wrong. And nothing you can do will ever change my mind about that. If I have to be supportive of a freaking rapist, in your opinion, then I know you're wrong. If you have to stoop to the level of making fun of people that need food because Trump defunded the freaking Meals on Wheels, if you have to stoop to being like, guess grandma's gonna have to get breakfast somewhere else, if you have to stoop to that disgusting level of cruelty to support the the president, the person you're supporting, if you have to stoop to that level to support somebody to defend him, there's something wrong.